Well. 2 videos in 1 week on games once thought dead beyond rescue and somehow, seemingly impossibly, finding redemption even in the eyes of burned and distrustful launch players and pre-order suckers. First New World, and now No Man's Sky is coming to the Nintendo Switch in just a couple of days from this video, as a matter of fact. It seems pretty improbable. I'd come close to using the term impossible, but then we've seen so-called impossible ports of games like Doom 2016 and The Witcher 3, which have had Switch ports which, while naturally heavily compromised on the Nintendo hardware, which was already a generation behind Nvidia's Tegra GPU-CPU chip, even when it launched, generation and a half behind if you want to get nitpicky about it, and I do, because technically correct is the best kind of correct. But nonetheless, those ports worked, and worked well enough to be pretty well received by the player base, and even received moderate but qualified praise from the likes of Digital Foundry, who spend their professional lives pulling apart games for the graphical and performance flaws and triumphs of them there. That was a fantastic sentence, I'm proud of that one. In any case, I'm very much looking forward to the DF boys tearing open the Nintendo Switch port of No Man's Sky. Hello again, I am Blunty, and I am distrustful of Hello Games. But as I always have been, willing to let them prove themselves by doing, not telling. Their founder, Sean Murray, however, that scumbag liar, won't ever have any of my precious benefit of the doubt again because he's a liar who lies, and you can't trust liars even when they say they'll never lie to you again. Now then, before we dive in deeper, I'd love to hear your No Man's Sky experiences in the comments. I'm sure there's a great many stories out there of betrayal and trust earned back. Have you played it before? Did you play at launch? Were you hyped and then bitch-slapped like me, a pre-order asshole? Did you jump on later during one of its large updates? Are you maybe a brand new player interested by the Nintendo Switch port, or indeed the accompanying 4.0 update that promises to make a new player feel very, very welcome and easily onboarded? You know where to let me know, it's in the down below, and you also know there's thumbs and bells and whatnot waiting for you. Click down there too, please. Now then, it is somewhat concerning now that with only a few days left to launch on the Nintendo Switch, I've gone looking for pre-release hands-on gameplay as such, and it seems those outlets that have been personally invited to play the game to prepare their impressions and reviews coverage have seemingly only been allowed to do so under strict supervision of Hello Games, and in short periods, which, ridiculous for a game like this, you really need several hours at least to get a good feel for it, and without being permitted to capture their own gameplay for the purposes of publication. All typical warning signs, and all the things that were great big giant red flags leading up to disastrous launches like last year's console launch of Cyberpunk 2077, for example. Yet another game that's on a path to redemption right now. And of course, with Hello Games and in particular its founder Sean Murray being well known as liars, bold-faced, vile, lying liars who lie, it's show, don't tell for them when it comes to earning my trust. And that's the problem, because they haven't been doing much showing, much less allowing the people who've shown to show off what they've been shown. And yes, I know, it's very, very fair to say that No Man's Sky has, over the past 6 years, and something like 20 separate updates, carved out what might be one of gaming's greatest redemption stories. They have redeemed themselves. They're not on a redemption path, like a couple of the other games I've mentioned. They have redeemed the game. But once a liar, always a liar, which is why the severe lack of show and a lot of tell instead standing in place doesn't fill me with an over-abiding sense of benefit of the doubt for them and the Switch port. I would love to have my skepticism proven wrong. I'm not one of those people who likes to hate on stuff just because hate gets clicks. I want games to be awesome. I'm a literal lifelong gamer, 4 decades of being a gamer, and I want my fellow gamers to have great games. Delivered well and playable with choice, multi-platform choice. So with No Man's Sky coming to yet another platform, can only be a good thing if it delivers properly. Now, I don't keep a close eye on dev updates for No Man's Sky these days, haven't done in years. In fact, I haven't played basically any of the games since the next update in 2018. That was version 1.50, the first truly significant update in its redemption path. I jumped back in, I played for a bunch more hours, and I was having fun, and then I just got distracted by another game, I guess, and never went back to it. But I have been meaning to dive in properly again, start fresh, brand new file, absorb the game in its modern iteration, and see how things feel from the start, starting fresh. And I can tell you now, for absolute sure, I will not be doing that fresh playthrough on Nintendo Switch. Partly because why would I when I already own the game on PC, where I can run it at its best and not be jammed up at 30 FPS for a first-person perspective game for a start. It's also partly because the Switch version is not just visually crippled, by necessity of course, the Switch being underpowered as it is, but also feature crippled. It's not exactly the same game as you get on all the other platforms. It doesn't have the full feature set of the other versions. They've been a bit hush-hush about exactly what is missing, but we do know for sure multiplayer is missing entirely. Somewhat ironically, it seems, because that's one of the things that Sean Murray lied about with the original game, how multiplayer would work. Big lies about that. It will also be interesting to see the inevitable comparison to it running on the Steam Deck, where apparently it has been quite a popular game choice. Where just last month it ranked the 6th most played game on the Steam Deck. Ahead of Skyrim, ahead of Spider-Man, ahead of Cult of the Lamb, and ahead of Disney Dreamlight Valley. Who is playing that on the Steam Deck? But in looking at some of the pre-release press coverage for the Switch version, where you will find basically no actual gameplay by people playing the game, not the gameplay Hello Games provided to people to show you, I've also found a few interesting details along that path that I've not heard anything about yet. As I said, I don't really keep up with the dev updates these days. But it seems Hello Games hasn't just been tinkering with the Switch version, but has been working on bringing the game to a number of new low-power and non-gaming platforms sometime in the near future, including the iPad, I'm sure it'll be terrific there, and Macs. You'll be able to play No Man's Sky on your Mac. Won't that be amazing? It's also getting a PSVR 2 port, or functionality built into the existing version, I suppose, which I'd also be very wary of, by the way. I've played No Man's Sky in VR, on PC of course, and it's a long way from an ideal experience. It's very awkward, very janky. A lot of the systems are very hard to use in VR. But while playing the game in VR isn't something I'd advise, using VR to immersively explore your bases once you've built them on a regular 2D screen and have a walk around the planets that they're sitting on is very cool. But it is just that. It's for tourism. Not so good for actual gameplay. Alongside the Switch version, though, also comes another major update, this time bringing the version number to 4.0. And you know what's weird about that? It's only being called the 4.0 update everywhere I see it, while every other major update has had a code name. Next, Abyss, Visions, Beyond, Living Ship, Desolation, Origins, Outlaws, etc. This one's just called 4.0. And it seems the reason for this is 4.0 is not a content update so much as it is an overhaul of a lot of underlying systems, including the progression systems. 4.0 is intended, it seems, designed to help rejuvenate the player base. Because, well, No Man's Sky's 6-year-long, redemption arc so far, in fact, has taken the game from being regarded as a colossal, miserable failure, one of the biggest failures gaming has ever seen, to a decent to great game, depending on who you ask. Its player base has remained rather consistent, but also quite small. Very few people have come back to the game during its redemption arc. Despite the short bursts of returning players with any large update, it can't really hang on to them. With the Nintendo Switch version, it may be the first time since launch new players start coming on board, both on the Nintendo Switch itself, of course, but with the accompanying media coverage, putting it on people's radar again, putting it in front of them. And undoubtedly riding on this wave will be content creators, streamers and the like, including probably yours truly, diving back in to ride the wave of attention the game now has with the Switch update, accompanied by the 4.0 update. Which is why I think Update 4.0 has been done smartly. To ride this wave of new players, it introduces a newly altered and redesigned intro sequence and tutorial path, apparently, and other systems to make it easy for new and lapsed players who are returning to catch up on the 6 years worth of added content, added systems, and story. And Sean Murray, known liar, has said in an interview with PC Gamer, if you come back to the game, there's actually a log where you have a summary of the story so far. We have an info portal that will collect together everything that you've done so far, everything you've unlocked, all of that, and will give you more info on it so that you can dig into it. That's if known liar Sean Murray is telling the actual entire truth for perhaps the first time in his life anyway. He is a liar after all, and liars always lie, but it seems like a sensible enough thing to say, and it's probably got a grain of truth to it, I suspect. This type of stuff certainly was an issue when I booted up the game for a few hours last year for the purposes of doing some GPU testing and in curiosity to see what the game, looks and runs like these days. It seems much of my old base wasn't how I remember leaving it, nor was even the landscape of the planet I built it on. There were completely different plants which were growing through various parts of my base. Now, they weren't there before. The colors looked different. The landscape looked different. I was confused and frustrated trying to get back into the systems. My vehicles weren't working the way I remember them working, and I bounced off the game pretty quickly in frustration at all that. So introducing systems to better accommodate returning players and make new players' onboarding experience a lot easier and less frustrating all seem like good ideas to me. For existing players, new journey milestones have been expanded to provide the current players with some new goals to aim for. Also, other pain points that I recall quite clearly, like the inventory systems, are apparently being improved and expanded. So players jumping in on Nintendo Switch or the other platforms when 4.0 goes live will have bigger backpacks to start with and the like to make early game, a lot less annoying and fiddly with the inventory management, something that I am personally driven mad by in a lot of games. Man, I hate inventory management, and I remember No Man's Sky being particularly annoying with its tiny inventories and massive amounts of materials that you had to collect and craft and do whatnot with. And lastly, but perhaps most significantly, a new difficulty mode is being added called Relaxed Mode. Hang on, let me get close to the microphone. Called Relaxed Mode. It's still survival mode. It's not creative and unlimited, although there is a creative mode in the game, if I recall correctly. Instead, this mode is supposed to make the game a little less grindy, I guess, with less intense upkeep for the survival mechanics. So I guess your shields will last a bit longer, your health will drain slower, that kind of thing. So you spend less time crafting upgrades and fuel for those things. I imagine the fuel that you need to feed various devices to make the other stuff is probably reduced as well. And supposedly it demands less massive resource collection and the like. So, everything's just tuned down. Stuff needs less stuff to make other stuff and the like. Did that make sense? I think that made sense. Seems like it's designed to allow you to enjoy the game for the gameplay, but respecting your time a little bit better for those who consider resource collecting and farming and, all that kind of granny stuff and the limits and time gates and that kind of introduces waiting for stuff to grow back or generate and whatnot. And, people who consider that an interruption, grindy, tedious mechanics like that, just getting in the way of what they consider the gameplay. In the right game, I rather enjoy resource collection, but I think I'll give this mode a go because from memory, from the last time I played properly, I do remember resource collection being a little more grindier than I prefer it, so this might be a nice gentle way back into the game. On the other side of that coin, there's a new harder core, survival mode, which is also being added to make No Man's Sky all the more intense for experienced players looking for a larger challenge. And yes, permadeath is a thing too. I'm pretty sure permadeath was already a thing, but apparently you can even turn permadeath on in relaxed mode now, which sounds weird, but more player choice and flexibility in how they choose to play can only be a good thing in my humble opinion. Might lead to some fun challenge playthroughs. Imagine playing relaxed mode with permadeath on and PvP turned on. Now, I'm off to PAX Australia this weekend. Very excited about it too. First time in 3 years the event has been able to run because of the event. And that means I'll be doing other more exciting stuff when the game actually launches. But I'm hoping that somewhere on the show floor, No Man's Sky will be on demo somewhere on Switch. Sadly, Nintendo don't have a dedicated booth at this year's event, but hey, maybe one of you viewer types will have your Switch and a copy of No Man's Sky with you to play while you're enjoying the line rides, perhaps. Do let me know. I kind of want to look over your shoulder and see it run, if that's the case, or see it walk, or do what Switch games do. Run is sometimes a large word for what Switch games can do. I mean, I love my Switch, but come on guys, come on. In any case, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for letting me know what your No Man's Sky story is or hopes to be. Love and appreciate all the Patreon supporters scrolling up above there too. And I guess weekend after coming weekend, I'll probably be streaming No Man's Sky on PC, fresh playthrough over on Twitch. So, follow over there if you're interested in that, I suppose. Thanks for watching, I'm Blunty, and we'll catch you next time.